everybody? Welcome to UGA Sports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by former Georgia Bulldogs head coach Jim Donnan, the Hall of Famer himself. And the only reason you were all tuned in on a Tuesday at noon, Tuesday rainy noon, that you were here. Of course, we have Dayne Young in the fancy studio, sounding cool and running all our shows and stuff, and hopefully keeping us on track, making us hit our time and not just talk all day. Coach, your Georgia Bulldogs are the 2024 SEC champions. No matter what else happens to the rest of the season, everybody on that team is going to get a big fat championship ring. Big accomplishment for the Bulldogs. I know we only think about national championships nowadays, but Kirby wanted that championship. And the players, you were down on the field afterwards. You saw those kids, how excited they were about winning this title. You saw Trevor Etienne say, "That's why I transferred to Georgia. That's why you go there." He's never – I mean, he was joking that the players were making fun of him because the only, bowl game he'd ever been to was, something in Las Vegas. And they're like, "Really?" So Trevor Etienne was huge, happy. And despite the injuries that came out of that game, a major contest and a major accomplishment for the University of Georgia. So give me your take on it. We always like to get your overall thoughts on the SEC championship game and the Georgia Bulldogs winning it.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say, without a doubt, one of the best coaching jobs from top to bottom of any staff I've ever been around in all my years of coaching. When you look at all the things that have happened to us, whether it's off the field, on the field, injuries, game situations, reacting to adversity, putting your team in a position to win, playing the schedule we did, just the unreal, which a lot of fans don't know exactly some of the things going on behind the scenes. So without question, one of the top coaching jobs I've ever been around, to Kirby and his staff and his support group, everybody associated there. And then, for the players, you have goals every year when you start out the season, against your rivals and against your, doing all the other things, but winning the championship of your own conference is among the best ones. And it's been hard to do. I think, what's this, the third one Kirby's won here? And he's been close a lot of times. But and then you look at how we won it with the things that happened to us. Handling adversity and just the way that our kids bonded when they saw that Beck was out and the defense roared up a little bit better in the second half. Fortunately for us, the only way you can say it is Texas completely pissed down their leg in the first half in the red zone. I mean, we did some good things stopping them, I know, but when you have that many penalties and that many mistakes in the red zone, you're not going to win many games against anybody. And so to win a game like that when you don't have all your things in a row, you got to have the other team help you a little bit. And we talk about on this show about so many times, Dayne, you, me, everybody, most games are lost, they're not won. And I think in this case, to a certain extent, Texas lost that to us, and then we took advantage of it, and then we won it with what we were able to do in the pressure situation. So you can take a lot of different ideas about what happened and who did what, but just a consummate team situation where everybody knew what their role was and took advantage of it, including a guy that hadn't even been on the field before going out there and acting like he was a punter, and we ran a fake punt. So, I've never seen anything like that call. And if you look at the background of it, that's just the same thing we used to have to do in 1AA. You can only take so many players to a championship venue in the conference. So we could only take 80. So you had to figure out where you're going to cut people. Well, it looks like you can't take, but you either got to take 2 kickers or 2 punters. And if one of the kickers can punt, you take 2 kickers. So our second team kicker, who had transferred here from Duke, has the ability to do a one-step punt and maybe kick it 40 yards, maybe a little further. So, but we hadn't had a situation this ever here with Brett where we needed another punter. So this guy can be a holder, a kickoff man, a field goal man, a punter. And so we put him in there and just a tremendous fake and a great job by so many people. Bobo handling the snap and pitching it to him, and on the outside, a really good job by Lovett with his release to take care of those two gunners. But again, what I brought back was just the fact that everybody has a role, and under Stockton has to become the third holder.
That's right.
Lose Beck, you lose Thorson. Now Gunner's got to go in there, and then Beck's got to go in there with one arm and take the snap. I mean, he just can't write this up anymore in the Hollywood script. But and for our fans, I just love the fact that they're so supportive and they all have thoughts and everything. But we're going to get a chance to, maybe speculate and talk about the playoffs here later on. But this team right here has just got a lot of just good vibes to it. And when it's your turn to step up, step up.
I want to point out the fact that Kirby Smart is the only coach to have 3 or more SEC titles. Only Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban were the only 2 to get more than 3. So he's in rare company right off the bat. And I think you nailed it, Coach, talking about how everybody had their role to play. And I was talking about it last night with somebody. The catch that Lawson Lucky made, that little foot tap, probably one of the best catches of the year. But, we just zoom right past it because we're talking about the quarterback coming in. And if Carson Beck's last snap at the University of Georgia was to come in with only one arm working and hand the ball off for a touchdown, I mean, how fitting is it? Like you said, it's a Hollywood ending. It's insane. Yeah. And people are mad at Arian Smith for a drop here or there, but he recovered a fumble. Nate Frazier recovers a fumble. I mean, it's just –
he didn't just recover that fumble. He fought for it.
Yeah, exactly. So you go down the list of who had, Ben Urosic with a huge block on the edge, Oscar Delp doing the things he does, Xavier Truss grading out through the roof, the interior defensive lineman collapsing a pocket. Guys,
yeah, we could go over that.
I'm just saying everybody had a role, and
Brinson had a game. Win. Brinson had the game of his life too, but you talk about Lucky and watching the tape, and I know. Dayne and Brent did a great job of breaking it down. But the play he made on the interception, if he doesn't get that guy down, this guy's going to the house. And because we don't have anybody over there. So that tackle was outstanding by Lucky. And I just think we're going to see more and more of him with our style now with the gunner in there. And it's going to be exciting to see us with, and I hate this for Beck and I hate it for everybody, but we are going to have to do some change ups, and maybe we'll get Kobe Young back. And so you lose one, get another one. But and the other thing I want to do is just give a tremendous outbreak of just admiration for the job Carson Beck has done for us at quarterback. Because when you look at all the times he could have probably left here, he hung in here, he earned his role, and he played spectacular for the most part. I mean, he had a couple games where he threw some picks, but I mean, just we couldn't be here without Carson the last 2 years. I mean, what he's done week in and week out has just been outstanding, and I'm so happy that he got the chance to be our quarterback.
Coach, you had mentioned Warren Brinson having the game of his life. It was him. It was Nazir Stackhouse. Xavier McLeod looked as good as I've seen. This is 2 games this year where Georgia's defensive line has outclassed Texas, a really good offensive line. And a team that ran all over Texas A&M, a team that I think has a pretty good defensive line. What is it about Georgia's defensive line that makes it where it's been able to do that twice against Texas, where that may be the best 2 games that defensive line played this year?
I think the trade does a good job of moving in, mixing and matching, and getting the kind of schemes that we need, and also the calls that Coach the different calls that we get from Coach Schumann. But, they're not a great running team. They haven't run the ball very well all year. And we definitely dominated them up front. And I'm not sure, I didn't get to watch the TV, but the left tackle didn't play, right?
He did not play.
Yeah, so we took advantage of that. We took advantage of it when he did play. And he was probably getting some word from his guys that, hey, let's hey, you're probably better off not playing if you're not full speed. I'm talking about his agents. You had trouble when you're full speed, so don't get in there. But I'm just throwing that out there for Texas.
Hey, Coach, they did a better job running the ball, because the first time Texas got 29 yards. This game they got 31 yards. So they averaged 1.1 yard per carry.
Yeah, but I think that's bullshit too because of the sacks.
Well, but it still counts. Yeah, we went from 7 sacks to 6 sacks. So
we had 6 sacks and a lot of lost yardage plays, but
15 tackles for loss.
I was up there with you, and I talked every time they ran a running play. I said, "Thank goodness."
You did.
We
did.
We were having a hard time covering them, and we've had a hard time all year. I mean, it's just an issue for us. So hopefully, we'll get better at that. But you never know. You never know.
I do want your thoughts on the secondary, because at some point in the game, I'm just being snarky on the internet like I normally am. I'm like, Georgia should never throw it again, because the running game was working, and that's something we haven't seen in a while. But Georgia was gashing them on the run, and Georgia was dropping passes, and Texas couldn't run it, but everything they threw seemed to just catch Georgia out of spot. And I thought, hey, Texas, if I'm Texas, I don't run the ball again. I just I pick Georgia apart, and if I'm Georgia, I just run it down their damn throats. And
well, you always have the threat of the other part, so it's easy to say that. I mean, but you're definitely right. I mean, we did, but our play action passes that Gunner hit, and he had some really either or plays where he ran the quarterback draw that was just, including that one where I've never seen. I mean, he gets the red badge of courage for holding on to that ball. That was just an unbelievable splatter. And but people don't realize Gunner weighs about 220 now. It's not like he's coming out there with not a real good package now. And he's a weight room. He reminds me of Jalen Hurts in the weight room. Now, he can do all these big, strong power lifts, and he's hard to get down. And the thing that encourages me as an old coach, and I keep looking at myself, and I am old, and I just see this kid against our defense and see the plays he made. A lot like, I'm not making any reference to Stetson or anybody, but he can make these plays against our defense. He can make them against anybody. I'm talking about get out of trouble, hit the second guy. He's a coach's son. His dad played against me at Marshall, was a strong safety at Georgia Southern, and I never will forget. We were playing them down there, and we were running sprint right, flood right, and our inside receiver is supposed to run an inside break and then go back out in the slot, to make it look like he's going over the top, and he decided to take a little extra fake, and he didn't do very well, and he's now Coach Stockton made an interception on my son Todd because he read Todd, and the receiver didn't go where he's supposed to. But and then I remember when Gunner was in the 8th grade, Bobo was at the lake or something with Coach Stockton and Gunner and all, and they were calling me about did I remember him playing it against me at Georgia Southern, and I said, sure, I remember that pick you made. You can remember all that stuff, but kind of ironic that now that he's getting a chance to see his son go down in history. I mean, he goes down as that's the kind of legends are made of that, what he was able to do the other night.
I don't think enough people have pointed out the fact that when he got hit, everyone says, well, should it have been targeting? Everything else anywhere around the head and helmet is targeting nowadays, but they didn't call that one. The fact that his eyes crossed, they looked like they closed. He looked like he was knocked out. He popped up, but he looked, when he's going down with his helmet off, he looks unconscious. But he holds onto that ball. That's Georgia's possession in the second half, in the overtime. Texas had already scored. If he fumbles right there, unconscious, and Texas recovers, it's not a targeting call. The game's over. So he saved the game by hanging on to it. And again, just mind-boggling that he did that. And I know we're going to talk about him going into the playoffs. He's your quarterback more than likely for the it's about 99% certain that he'll be your quarterback in the Sugar Bowl. Coach, he might face Notre Dame. Notre Dame could be the team. And I just go back to
Oh,
the Jake Fromm series.
This Jake Fromm thing going over that bullshit. Hey, we had it. You love to bring it.
Facts is facts, Coach.
Hey, that's good. Bring it up. Go ahead. But hey,
well, we've got time.
Can we get everybody in the stadium like we did at Notre Dame too, and do all that?
We probably will.
Have the greeters there talking about how nice Notre Dame is, and let's go back to all of that. And no, I was just busting you, Roddy. That's fine.
Well, I think that the preparation that he will have for Indiana or Notre Dame.
Yeah, he'll be a lot more prepared to play than Jake was, because Jake had just gotten here, as a freshman, and had fall camp. But this guy's had 2.5 years, almost 3 years here, and he knows he's had an existing relationship with Mike Bobo his whole life. I mean, and they really can interact together, and of course Beck did well too. But I just don't think it's going to be nearly as hard a transition as it could be, because of the way our coaches prepare our players and practice. If we didn't do that, it would be hard. But let's just say the only time you do in the fall, let's go against scout team, which is lesser players for anybody. But I'm telling you, you read about it, and both you guys report about Bloody Tuesday and all. I mean, that's hard out there now. I mean, you gotta go out there and survive on Tuesday, and same thing's gonna be true here. You listen to Kirby talking these press things that he does, which he's prepping everybody, but they really do believe in studying themselves, getting ready and getting better, and working at different areas that they need to based on what has happened, and to this point about these are things we need to improve on, and that's what they're going to do. And the other thing that by having this bye is just recovery.
Yeah,
I mean, just the fact you don't have to go out there and even be out, even if you're just doing a walkthrough or anything, you're standing on. Just the fact these kids have 4 or 5 or 6 days off are going to be huge, because they've been going really hard since, let's say, August 1st. And, it's going to be a fresh as a daisy team when we go down there to New Orleans. Plus the fact last week we're coming off an 8 overtime game on top of that. So, and you add the anxiety and the pressure of the games, and the fact that we haven't subbed as much this year. Kirby's brought up the fact there's not as much depth. So I just feel like things are pointing in the right direction for us.
That's for the players. I don't know if there's as much recharge for the coaches, because you have the 8 overtime game, then you have a signing day, then you have the SEC championship, and now you have the transfer portal, and now you have getting ready for playoffs.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I tell you one thing that's good is I don't know if it's a quiet period or a dead period or what it is, but if you add that to the fact that you have to leave after practice and get on a plane and go see somebody and make a home visit, that makes it hard. But the fact that now you don't have to leave town and you can be around your family some here at this Christmas time and all that, I think that adds to the value of your coaching experience, because it's just not 24/7. I mean, it's probably like 18/6, as far as time off, and you got to sleep a little bit, but it's a great point you made. But I think the fact they have, I didn't have any juice there around Christmas time, because of just as soon as you finish practice, you're getting on either a helicopter or a plane to go visit somebody, and you got to be just as good with the first person as you were with the second, and you're seeing 3 or 4 of them there, and every one of them wants you to eat because you got the head coach in there, and it's amazing. Can you imagine going to some mama's house and she spent all day fixing that food for you, and you're saying, "Well, I'm sorry, I've already eaten over here at Champ Bailey's house. I can't have anything." I mean, you got to eat. You got to act like you can't wait to eat some more. And it was, and then you got to come home and tell your wife that, hey, I'm sorry about what you fixed today. I really can't eat anymore. I ate so much last night, I can't even breathe.
Yeah, I might pop. I might die. Speaking of eating, if you're not a coach on the road and you want something really good, check out our friends at Your Pie. They do a fantastic job of making exactly what you want. Of course, they have their traditional pizzas, then they have their sandwiches, they have their pastas, wings. That's a new thing this year. Your Pie has wings, and the wings are really good. We had some the other day, absolutely raved about them. Of course, they have their specialty pizzas like the hot honey pepperoni, barbecue chicken, bacon ranch. I know that everybody that has that one loves it. The Lineage Supreme, the Ishka. The Southern Heat's my favorite. If I'm just ever trying to figure out what do I want to eat, the Southern Heat, it pops into my head. Just get the Southern Heat and call up, and I'll do it on the app because they have a Your Pie app. I get points for it, and then guess what? I get free pizzas. I get free drinks. I get free breadsticks. I get free gelato. So hit up our friends at Your Pie. You'll be glad you did so because they can cover everything you need. And also, I want to mention our friends at Athens Ford, mainly because of two things. One, they've got we told you about the fact that they have the truck that goes around town. They have the mobile service van that goes around, and you can say, hey, come to my house, change out my oil. I've got a check engine light. Come to the house, check it out. I need new tires. I need new brakes, need all this stuff. They can come out and do it. That has now been extended to Saturdays. So you can actually have them come out on Saturdays. Normally it's a Monday through Friday thing, but they will come out on Saturdays as well. So that is a new thing they're doing. And also, if you're looking for a new vehicle this time of the year, go to Athens Ford and get one because they're doing a fantastic thing with the Angel Tree. For every car they sell, they add $100 to the Angel Tree, and it is amazing the sheer number of vehicles they sell. We talked about the other day about the fact that they do a lot of fleet vehicles, commercial vehicles. When you're selling them as many as those guys do, the donations to the Angel Tree go through the roof. Past years, we've talked about how many bikes they did because they'll do a bike for each kid and for each child when they sell a car. And you walk in there's hundreds of bikes everywhere. And you're like, where are you going to put all these things? But they're doing the same thing now for the Angel Tree. So check out our friends at Athens Ford. They're a huge member of the Athens community. And please support those who support your Georgia Bulldogs.
All right, Coach, I know Kirby Smart's saying they're focusing on what they can do to get better as a team in the next couple of weeks. That's not our job. Our job is to look ahead of next games, and that's going to be either Notre Dame or Indiana. So I'd like your early thoughts on Indiana at Notre Dame late in December, and then potentially you start looking just bracket-wise, likely Penn State, and then national championship.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going out and picking their brackets, based on everything that's going on. Certainly Penn State, if you're Oregon, you got to say, why did we win the championship? I mean, look at Penn State's draw compared to Oregon's. I mean, Oregon's got to play probably Ohio State or Tennessee. Both of them are good. And then probably Texas. And, and so Penn State's playing SMU and then Boise State. So, I mean, I like that little change up if I'm James Franklin, but he'll find some way to screw it up. Probably.
He didn't lie, Roddy. He did not lie.
No, he's not.
But he's done a good job. But he's notoriously none of those teams are top 10, so he should win. I mean, he beats all those. But as far as our situation, I think we got a deal there with Indiana. If you just got to think about being the underdog throughout your history in the state. I mean, you're living in a state where Notre Dame is king. You know what I mean? Notre Dame's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys were for a long time, the national team. Notre Dame, wherever they go, if they play in Philadelphia or wherever they go, they got such a great contingency of followers. So, and Indiana's had to live in that backdrop, and certainly had the basketball thing going for them. But some of my buddies have told me from ESPN that tickets are going for over $1,000 just for that game because it's a once in a lifetime game. Really, probably never going to play again. And then the Indiana fans are on fire. Signetti's done a great job. I mean, this guy's got the ultimate confidence. I mean, can you imagine if Bobby Knight was the basketball coach there and he was the football coach?
Oh, wow.
And they go down to have a press conference. And
who talks first?
yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I was just going to give you a little.
Who talks last?
Bobby would say to the SID, I'm going to tell you one thing, you scumbag. If you don't let me talk first, I'm going to whip your ass right now. And then Kurt Signetti says, listen, have you Googled me? I need to go first. But hey, realistically, as far as the game, I've been impressed with everything Notre Dame's done, except when I saw them on the watch party and saw those white uniforms that all of them had. I thought they're getting ready to go paint something. Did you see their white uniform?
Yeah. It looked like they were caddies at Augusta National. They were dressed that way.
They got this situation where they're looking like I guess Adidas I guess they're Under Armour just put it on them. But Freeman's done a good job. We're going to go against a guy that was at Cincinnati as a coordinator when we played them if they win, when we played them in the Peach Bowl, and he was also the coordinator at LSU when he scored all those points the second half against us when we played cover 2 and just really didn't play a lot of players. But he's a good offensive coordinator, and then their defensive coordinator was the head coach in Miami when Coley was there, so Coley's got a good feel for him. He knows a lot about him. The guy did a good job at Temple and was a good player at Penn State. So, but Notre Dame's got some good players, and Indiana does. But I don't think they would have run the gauntlet in the SEC like some of these teams. We'll just have to see. I haven't studied them enough, but give them credit. They both, when you look at it, I mean, they played the whole year and only lost 2 games between them.
I got to give Dayne credit for one time. After Notre Dame lost to NIU, I'm like, well, they're done. They're absolutely out. Then they went on to win 10 in a row. So he called it. He was right. I thought, if you lose to NIU, even with that schedule you got, you're not going to go win the rest of them. But
yeah, it was a simple schedule. They just have a really good pass defense. I think it's difficult to pass on Notre Dame, and they just have one of those gamer quarterbacks. Riley Leonard is capable of a lot of what we saw from Haynes King from Georgia Tech. Not as much of like downfield passing, but in terms of getting hard yards and running. I mean, Duke was a really good team last year with Riley Leonard at the helm.
Yeah, I'm impressed with Riley Leonard. I called up Mac Brown after I watched Riley Leonard play last year. And ask him how they got the kid and, at Duke, because that was before he got hurt. You saw him against Clemson in that first game of the season when they beat Clemson, when Clemson couldn't score there. Remember that 2 years ago down there? It was a bad loss for Clemson. And I was really impressed with him. And he said he was a really good basketball player too. And coming out of high school, but I tell you, the one thing that impressed me the most about Riley Leonard, besides his ability, and I think he's a little bit better passer than maybe, even though the guy from Georgia Tech just lit us up throwing the ball, was the fact when he transferred to Notre Dame, he had his girlfriend quiz him for a week with the pictures of all the players on the Notre Dame team, and when he went in there, he went up to every one of them and introduced himself and said, "Hello, Dayne. Hello, Roddy." He knew all the players. Now that was impressive to me, because he wanted to fit in and prove to them that, hey, I'm getting $1 million or whatever I am, but I really am caring about you guys. But I mean, it was a very sincere move. I thought that was impressive.
So he's one of those money guys from Fairhope, Alabama.
Well, his high school coach is a guy named Tim Carter, who used to be the high school coach at Auburn High School when Reuben Foster and Rayshawn Evans and that whole crew was there. I covered them in high school.
That's good. I mean, but what school was he in Alabama?
So he was at Fairhope High School. I think that's what it was.
Is that where the coach from where Phillip Rivers is now?
He's at a private school down there, right?
He's coaching somewhere. I mean, he's probably getting his family to go there because he's got close to 10 kids, doesn't he? I mean, how many has he got now? And what's impressive for him compared to most of those pro players, same mother. He doesn't have 3 or 4 different mothers with all those kids. That one guy from Tennessee's up to about 13 or 14 now.
Man, I'll never understand that.
I'm trying to get the number for you right now of number of kids. 7 daughters, 3 sons, so 10.
There you go. He's trying to start his own team.
One more for a team. Yeah, I don't get it either, Roddy.
Yeah, one more co-ed team. One thing I do get is we're right in the middle of the transfer portal being open, and if you want to help Georgia's transfer capabilities, you need to check out our friends at Red and Blackwater. They are a huge sponsor of this show. They are it's basically two folks from the dog vent from UGASports.com. Two guys that said, hey, they were at a meeting that Kirby was at, and Kirby's like, look, we're trying to keep our players. We're trying to sign kids out of high school. We're trying to get transfers to come in. We need NIL dollars. And they said, well, how can we do this? And two businessmen basically said, look, people buy more water than they do soft drinks. What if every time you bought a bottle of water, you could support Georgia's NIL efforts? And so they created Red and Black Water. They came up with a fantastic product. It's a raw mineral water. It's good for basically really good if you are an active person. You get out and you need to rehydrate. It's got the minerals in it. It's not just boiled tap water, that a lot of these other water companies use. So every bottle that is sold refreshes you, and proceeds of that go to Georgia's NIL efforts. Speaking of those NIL efforts, one of our other friends who's an even bigger supporter of Georgia athletics, because I haven't seen the check they wrote, but I heard how much it was for. That's our friends at Bulldog Snacks. Now, if you are not in the Athens area, Atlanta area, you may have a harder time finding the Bulldog chocolate chip cookies or the Bulldog bar, but you can order directly from Bulldog Snacks and have them delivered to you. Of course, they have the fan pack that's got 36 bars and 10 packs of cookies, but they also have a sample pack that has free shipping. It's 4 Bulldog bars and one of the cookies. They are a sponsor of our 3-2-1 report. And in our 3-2-1 report last week, we told you that Will Muschamp was going to be back. We told you all this insider stuff. You don't get that without Bulldog Snacks. So they provide you information, and they take care of a ton of Georgia athletes. So some of the NIL efforts that have been done for Georgia's players have been done specifically and solely thanks to the folks at Bulldog Snacks. So if you want to have chocolate chip cookies or granola bars in your house, don't buy them at the grocery store. Just get them straight from Bulldog Snacks. And if enough people do that, we've seen it work, Georgia's able to get a huge check from our friends at Bulldog Snacks to take care of some of these NIL efforts. That way, nobody has to, you, me, Dayne, Coach, no one has to write a giant check. You can just buy the same food that you buy, but just buy it from the right place. And all of a sudden, boom, we've crowdsourced Georgia's next huge NIL signing.
I want to make sure we get to questions, so I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, let me just make one statement there. And I appreciate what Red and Blackwater and the Snacks are doing, and the fans that support the collective and all that. But if I've ever said one thing to you as an ex-coach or somebody that feels the same way about Georgia as you do, this is a real situation now. You can talk about griping about losing players and why don't we do this and all that. But you got to understand that as the CEO of this program, Kirby has to make decisions based on his entire team and manipulate the different funds coming in and utilize that and keep the morale of the team up and decide who to use it for what. So don't speculate or say, I mean, if you want to, you can say, why don't we match that and all that? Just realize that if he wanted to match it, he'd match it. And if he wanted to, we got good sources and we got good resources. We need more, but it's not like we couldn't be number one or number two in recruiting if we didn't have it. Okay. But as Roddy mentioned, we need to keep getting more coming in because it keeps escalating. And the point I want to make is if you just look at the rosters of all these teams, and some of them are depleted and some of them are really pretty good. And the ones that are depleted are the ones that got new coaches. They're going to come after these players and they're going to offer them a lot more than they're making here. And we got to decide whether, we can keep them or not. But the kids got to look at, is it better for me to stay in a winning program and get developed and be part of this? or take a chance on going to a new situation and be unhappy, or maybe happy. So that's the reality of it. Is just believe me that it's beyond anything you want to do. If you want to speculate and make a deal, add a couple zeros to it, because it is unbelievable what some of these kids are asking for. And here's the thing. Let's just say you're with a friend of yours at high school and somebody offers him a job to work at another place, and he's working at a car wash or something. And the guy tells this guy, look, you need to go over to this other car wash. They're paying you this, plus you get more tips and all. That's what these kids are getting when they're telling these other kids, hey, can you believe it? I'm in the portal here. This is what I'm being offered. You need to look at it.
Yeah.
So word of mouth is bad, but without
and they lie, Coach.
Yeah, they do, but without reading the riot act, I'm just saying I admire the way Kirby has handled all this, because he's kept his squad for the most part intact. We really haven't lost a lot of guys that have hurt us. I mean, you got 2 guys starting for Penn State at corner that played here. I mean, they're in the national championship picture. And so we've lost some good players, but we've kept most of our squad. And let's just all stick together and do what you can to help them. And I think we got a good plan here. And we got this new money coming in with the, from the TV money, which will help. But don't just throw up your hands and say, God, I wish it wouldn't happen. It's happening. It's happening to the max.
Well, you can rebuild your team through the portal. Ole Miss, Indiana. It sounds like Marshall's entire team that is a championship team in that league is going in the portal, and a lot of them are probably going to follow the coach to Southern Miss. But you can also make portal decisions that destruct your team. Look at Florida State. And Roddy, I thought about it. Last year, Williams Nwaneri takes NIL money and goes to Missouri, barely plays, and now he's back in the portal and going for a round 2 there. Like that's resources that Missouri invested in that guy that did not yield really anything for Missouri.
Right. And you can say that there's a lot of that out there, because you're going to make mistakes. But as far as the Marshall thing, the thing that's really incomprehensible to me is they had over 60 in the portal on this team last year come up there. So whoever is leaving, it's going to be at least their second portal move, on top of the fact that they were there, and that bothers me as a Marshall guy. But and Indiana took advantage of James Madison. Players went out there and they had you talking about a cupcake schedule now. Good Lord. I mean, look at their schedule.
It was pretty simple. And you're right, Dayne, because here's the thing. When Missouri went around and asked all these people to give them a bunch of money to land Williams Nwaneri, think about it when you go back to them again and go, hey, my name's Coach Drinkwitz. I need another $1.5 million to land this kid. They're going to be like, what'd you do with the last $1.5 million we gave you? So it's going to be –
Well, 9 months ago, people around college football were trying to study what Missouri was doing because it seemed like they were ahead in how you do NIL things. I wonder if that perception changes.
No, it will.
But change, man, because of 2 words: Anheuser-Busch.
Well, and that's my point.
I don't know everything, but I coached at Missouri, and we had Anheuser-Busch before NIL. And you talk about jobs in the summer in St. Louis. I mean, our guys had some serious. I mean, some of our coaches wanted to go there and work in the summer. It was strong. So, but you got to look at Drinkwitz. So, I mean, they beat Ohio State last year. They won 9 games this year. I mean, his model is working for him pretty well. I mean, he lose William Nwaneri, and then Luther Burden is going into the draft, but he's done pretty well as far as augmenting his squad, and he's been beating the teams he's supposed to beat, except he didn't beat the Battle of Columbia this year.
All right, Dayne, let's get to some questions about Georgia.
Well, the first is a bowl question from Simplified Dog 76. Coach, what's your best bowl memory and the best bowl gift that you ever received?
Oh, well, as a player, for me, playing in the Liberty Bowl and for us to win, and I got the most valuable player. I don't know how I got that, but that was a great memory. And then Orange Bowl for winning the national championship was really unbelievable at Oklahoma, going down there for that. But as far as just the bowl, having a good time, going to the Sun Bowl, I mean, I don't know how many times I went over to Tijuana, but I went over there a few times. And I don't drink and never did drink, but we had a good time. They had a lot of entertainment over there, and it was fun. But the worst part about that was the weather was cold out there. It wasn't supposed to be Sun Bowl. But as far as the gift, I guess the Orange Bowl, Coach Switzer got a deal with every one of the coaches' wives got a meat coat. So I thought that was good for my wife.
From Pierce Outlaw, how much do you change the offense without Beck? And then how do you get a new quarterback prepared in just 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think just from the outset, it's definitely a good question because you really don't know the ins and outs of our practice, but you always have to have your number 2 quarterback ready. He's one play away from taking over your team. So there's not going to be much change, or maybe a few changes where some dropbacks might become more bootlegs or play action, and some runs might entice more reading where the quarterback can keep it. But I don't see an overwhelming change in the philosophy. I do feel like if Colby Young, who has a hearing today at 1:30, becomes eligible again, that will enhance our down the field passing game because his ability to make the contested catch. So I don't see a lot of change there. I really don't. I think what you got to do is get the number 2 guy ready, though, because Puglitsky and Rashada are going to get an inordinate amount of reps probably after practice and all that to get ready on a what-if basis if something happens to Gunner.
A practice question from KCKD. I'm sure Kirby will be watching a lot of Indiana and Notre Dame film, but this is the first time that college football's had a situation where you have the bye week and you don't know who you're playing next. When you start practice, do you just work on fundamentals, your own stuff, not depending on the opponent, or do you prepare a little bit for each of the teams just to be ready as much as you can?
Yeah, I think what you do is, first of all, you got these analysts over there and these film people, and they'll break down every team in the playoffs right now. They'll have a 12 or 13 game composite of every team because you're going to have to be ready the day after the last game to play the next team. For instance, if you get to the finals, you're going to need to have all their games up to that point because you're going to have to get ready in like 8 days. So, but these 2 teams, I think what we'll do is kind of like what we do in an off week. And this is based on what I think, based on what Kirby's done in the past, is spend more time on some situations with our team, recovery, working on fundamentals, doing some things to get your team condition-wise, and give an overview of both teams a little bit through walkthroughs, one day on Indiana, one day on Notre Dame, and then carry it over a couple days and then continue to develop your second and third team players. And then maybe the Sunday after or whatever day after that championship game that they play, first round, then you actually hone in on the one, but you'll get a little bit of both. That's for sure.
This question from GoDogs 1371. I'm going to adapt it a little bit. It said, can you install an entire offense in 3 weeks, or do you use this time to feel like a preseason camp? Coach, with 3 weeks before the next game, do you kind of use a fall camp style schedule?
As far as installing the whole offense, we installed one in 1 day at Oklahoma when Troy Aikman broke his leg. I mean, that's so overrated. I mean, if you've got a system and you believe in it and you know the nomenclature and you know that you've got a playbook that you can draw from and your players know the terminology, then all you got to do is carry it over and teach it based on what you've already done. You know, you taught it. And we've talked about this, and hopefully people listen to our shows in the off season. We had what you call a install And that means you take a little bit of your offense, a little bit of your defense every day and install it. And then the next day install until you get ready, start game week. But we do that in the spring. Prior to spring, we do the walk, which you can go out now 8 hours a week and meet too. So we have an install pre-spring, spring, post-spring, summer, and then fall camp. 5 installs. So these kids know everything about our whole offense. And then you go back to what you get, and that's where a guy like Rashada hadn't had all that. He just had it in the summer. So you catch what I mean here? It's not hard to go back to what you've learned.
Coach, I had someone tell me yesterday that the gap of knowledge between QB1 and QB2, so back to Stockton, in terms of just offensive mastery, is much greater than QB2 to 3 and 4. Would that be the case?
Maybe from an experience standpoint, but as far as just these guys meet, you can't have any idea about how much more a quarterback meets than the other people, and particularly just walking around with them. Like I used to take a quarterback on the field, and I hope people aren't bored about me saying this, but I would take a quarterback and just walk down the hash marks and say, okay, this is where we are. This is what we're doing. What would you be expecting? And to me, on the field, that's where it is. And you're talking to them about it. And then you go around and come back down the middle of the field, get in the red zone. And that interaction between, and when he says, well, I don't feel good about this right here, coach, I feel good about this, because in reality, he's the one that's got to do it, and so I think that Mike does a great job. I mean, that's the way I trained him. He does a great job of doing that, and Kirby does it too a little bit, because as the head coach, he's got to be, have that relationship with the coach, with the offensive coordinator, but also the quarterback. I mean, he takes them over out to lunch and meets with them, and just, hey, he talks about the feeling about how's the team feeling, and, what are we doing that we might be doing more of or less of. I mean, it's just not all X's and O's. It's his philosophy and all that. So there's a lot of training that goes involved in that, because as I've said before, it's like a high school game. On Friday night at 7:30, no matter how much you've coached or how much you've done, it's going to all boil down to connect quarterback, do what you taught him when the band's playing. I mean, that's what it's going to boil down to. The guy that's got the quarterback's got a really good shot.
You had mentioned the need for QB2 reps. UGA alum 95 wants to know if you can just give a scouting breakdown of what Puglisi does best and what Rashada does best.
Well, out of high school, we saw Rashada's got the big time arm, and he played in a fairly good league in Connecticut, and showed some ability to be pretty mobile, to be as big as he is. But he's got we talked about it last year on our shows when he came in here for, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to when you get these early reportees. Let anybody that's signed with us that's going to go to school here in the fall and the spring can come in and practice with us for all these bowl preparations. And I think maybe even the guys that aren't going to can. So he came in here, and I tell you, our players were shaking their head looking at him. Man, this guy can rock it. He's got a good arm. We didn't get to see him a lot in the spring because he got hurt and he hasn't played much, but he's got similar velocity to Beck. Rashada has played at Arizona State. He's a pretty mobile guy, and is very good at what he does. He can throw, maybe more mobile than any of the guys we got, but he gives you another kind of and he was brought in here for this kind of situation, to give you a guy with some experience in case you need it.
Speaking of experience, if you don't have the experience that you need, you don't have to worry about it, because our friends at myperfectfranchise.net will step in and give you all the experience and education and direction that you need. Andy Ledecky over there is like, hey, I'm not going to make this complicated on you. I'm going to make it easy. So you can establish your own independence without fear. You don't, you're working with a proven brand. They've done this, tens of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times. And so they know what the what you're going to face when you're starting out. They're going to know what your frequently asked questions are. So reach out to myperfectfranchise.net. Let Andy Ludecky walk you through all the different options that are out there. Like I said, there's over 3,000 different franchises throughout the United States, and he's going to go through a very extensive process to get you into the right one. And then the folks there are going to take you in and make sure that you open it up and that's successful, because they are interested in you being successful too. They don't want to open a poor franchise, or have a bad franchisee. So you're going to get a lot of support from them. And the best part is, going to Andy doesn't cost you anything. Now, you have to pay the franchise rights and all that stuff to the people that you eventually sign up with, but Andy doesn't charge you. So hit him up when you get a chance. You'll be glad that you did so. Speaking, I also want to mention our friends over at Reinhardt Equipment Company. Big Dan the Bobcat man. He's an absolute riot to follow on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you go. This is something that I saw on their Facebook page. Section 179 tax incentives. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds impressive. He says they're worth exploring for purchase assistance. Don't hesitate to reach out. They have tons of equipment out there, but especially right now, you're in December. The year end's coming up. Some of these tax rebates and financing and stuff like that, some of your write-offs, a lot of people have to invest in equipment now because you don't want to get that huge tax breaks or the tax bill. So reach out to Reinhardt Equipment Company up in Rome, Georgia. They've been around since 1947. So it's not like a flash in the pan company, although they are very active on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. You think that, these are new guys. No, they've been around a really long time, 80-something years. And just because they're active on social media doesn't mean that they're not old souls out there. So if you need some equipment, especially the Bobcat stuff, check out Reinhardt Equipment Company. And last but not least, I want to mention our friends over at Academia Brewing Company, because it is Christmas. And you're thinking, we need to get together for the holidays. We need to get together for having a work party. There's a lot of work parties going on right now. You can actually go out to Academia Brewing Company. They have all your private party needs. They've got catering, games, private bars, everything in between. They've got, you can do they have one whole section of the building is for, corporate events or party events and stuff like that. The other night, they had the entire full facility shut down for folks over at Harrison Poultry. So they have that. And of course, this time of year, a lot of people like the sours, and they have the sour syllabuses. You get 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can get the whole 4-pack, the sour syllabus Christmas special. Come in, grab that. You'll be glad you did so.
2 minutes left in the show. We'll sneak in as much as we can.
Before you do that, I just want to make one point here about quarterbacks and replacing them. In 1985, Troy Aikman broke his leg in the 5th game of the year, and we put a freshman quarterback in there. And we won the national championship because the team believed in him, and we utilized everybody else, and it worked out good. Now it was a hard road to hoe and then in 1992, Michael Payton, who was a player of the year in 1AA, got hurt and had to miss 2 games in the playoffs, and we put a freshman quarterback in there by the name of Todd Donnan. He came in there and did what he's supposed to because he was prepared and the players believed in him, even though he's a freshman. And then in 1995, our quarterback got hurt, and we put a freshman quarterback, Chad Pennington, in, and he played for 7 games, and we lost in the finals to Montana. So as a coach, you got to get your guys ready. But I've been involved with teams, and I'm not bragging about that, but I just know the way Kirby prepares, and I know the way the Gunner's ready to go, and I got the same kind of vibes for him and the feeling about it that I did with those other 3 guys that I had experience with.
Direct question from In Kirby We Trust. Who would you rather play in New Orleans, Indiana or Notre Dame?
Playing both, doubleheader. No, I don't know. Shit. Who knows? That was a very dumb answer, but I think both of them are very capable teams. We're going to have to play a really good football. We're going to have to improve our pass defense against either one of them. But I like our roster against them as far as just 1 through 44, our first 44 versus them. And I really don't know enough about either one of them to say which one.
Indiana.
I agree with Roddy. That's all the time we have for questions. There are plenty in the YouTube chat, and we will log some of those because we don't have another game for another 3 weeks. But come the new year, the UGA Sports Watch Along Show with Jim Donnan back and rolling for the college football playoff.
Yeah, we'll definitely do the Sugar Bowl. I don't know about the Orange. If we go to the Orange Bowl, I might be down there. We'll see. But hey, I appreciate all the questions, and again, let's just enjoy this ride. I mean, this is unbelievable. It hadn't been easy, but everybody has had enough apprehension to make sure that you don't have to go to the heart doctor. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm getting like stomach ulcers from these dudes. I mean, they're just killing me, coaches.
Yeah,
it is. I want to point out the fact that 1 month ago, Georgia had lost to Ole Miss. People want to pack in the season, say it's done. They weren't in the playoffs. They were the first team out. Now they're the number 2 seed. And I just saw that Kirby Smart is mentioned in the Kirby Smart has been named a finalist for the Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year. Just goes back to what you said earlier. This may be his best coaching job of its entire put together. So.
And Mike Bobo and Schumann too, with all the injuries. Unreal.
Yeah. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week. We will be back next Tuesday. And at that point, we'll force Coach to actually present we'll put him on the horns up on the whiteboard and make him do all the stuff about Indiana and Notre Dame. So we'll make him break those down. We'll see you next week. Y'all take care.